We don't have full control over our kids at any age, but we do have influence, and we can be a positive influence in our kids' media habits and their relationship to media.
I'm Sora, and welcome to the Mindful Mama podcast.
You're listening to the Mindful Mama podcast, episode number 266. Today, we're talking about how to handle screen time with Anya Kamenetz. Welcome to the Mindful Mama podcast, now with over 1 million downloads. Here, it's about becoming a less irritable, more joyful parent. At Mindful Mama, we know that you cannot give what you do not have. And when you've calm and peace within, then you can give it to your children. I'm your host, Hunter Clark-Field's Mindful Mama mentor. I help smart, thoughtful parents stay calm so they can have strong, connected relationships with their children. I've been practicing mindfulness for over 20 years. I'm the creator of Mindful Parenting, and I'm the author of Raising Good Humans, a mindful guide to breaking the cycle of reactive parenting and raising kind, confident kids. Hey, welcome back, my friend. How are you doing? How are you hanging in there? I have to report that there is sunshine outside my window, and it's making me so happy. So this is going to be a real short intro and outro because I want to get out in that sunshine. It's like 50 degrees out, which I'm sorry for you guys, those of you guys who do Celsius. I cannot tell you what that is right now, but it's nice and pretty warm. I'm so excited. So I hope that you are getting a little bit of this wherever you are, something that little that makes you smile and makes you feel good today. And welcome to you, especially if you are a new listener. I'm so excited to talk to you and have you dive into this conversation. In just a moment, I'm going to be sitting down with NPR Education Correspondent and author Anya Kamenetz. Her most recent book is The Art of Screen Time: Digital Parenting Without Fear. And we're going to talk about the screen time thing because I don't know about you, but it's like crazy out of control in my house with like pandemic winter. Ay, ay, ay. So I'm like all in a tizzy, worried if my kids are going to be just turning into, zombies like in the Matrix. So if you're with me, then this is definitely the episode for you. We have these questions. Are our kids getting too much screen time? Is there such a thing as healthy screen time? When is it time to cut back on screen time? So I talked to Anya about all of these things, along with many other questions. I know this is going to be a super helpful episode for you. I want you to listen for some important takeaways, how we want to think of creating healthy screen time habits, the way we create healthy eating habits, how family participation in conversations about appropriate screen time usage is the key. We need everybody involved. And that we also want to consider not only the time spent, but what they're engaging with. What are they doing? Is it useful? So I want you to listen up for all of these things. Before we dive in, I want to let you know that, you've heard, if you're a longtime listener, you've heard me here on the podcast talk about my group coaching or my one-on-one coaching and retreats, all kinds of things. But I want to let you know that I am not offering any one-on-one coaching or group coaching at all anymore. So the only way to work with me is through joining Mindful Parenting. And you can do that by going to mindfulparentingcourse.com right now to get on the wait list. If wherever you're listening to this, if you look down, there's a place where there's notes. We should have a link for it right there. You can get right on the wait list. But it is such a powerful vehicle. It is transforming so many lives. I say this as an author who I've written a book, but it's so much more powerful to get the community of hundreds of people around the world and the coaching and the accountability and all the things for a lifetime. And I'm only offering memberships to the Mindful Parenting membership for lifetime memberships now because I know what a powerful thing that is. And having a now 14-year-old, I can say we need that support at all ages and stages. Oh my goodness. So I'll just share a couple of wins that we've had this week in the membership. Kaylin wrote to me, said that my husband has gone from hating it working at home because the kids wouldn't listen to him. And when they knew that she was home, they were feeling more, she was so frustrated, to feeling more aligned as a team together and also blessed to have a hand when he needs it. And she said, being home 24/7 has really pushed this practice of self-awareness and skillful communication with my kids and husband into overdrive. Quite possibly exactly what I needed. So awesome. Yeah, we've been hearing now with the pandemic, there's always a big question like, what if my husband is not on the same page? And there are a bunch of members whose partners were not on the same page, but during the pandemic, they have come around more quickly than they usually do, which is exciting. So that's awesome. And Allie has reported that bedtime has improved, which is so exciting. Improving bedtime, which is always a blessing. And shout out to Lauren, who's slowing down, creating more space for transitions. Woot woot. Yay. Makes a big difference. And she said she's also benefiting a bunch from what we do in the Mindful Parenting members only Facebook group. We do a lot to keep people accountable, and she is benefiting from that and setting her weekly intentions. So cool. Snaps to you, mamas. Woot woot. So yeah, if you are interested in that membership, go ahead and go to mindfulparentingcourse.com right now to get on the wait list. I would love to welcome you in. We only open our doors a couple times a year, so go check it out. All right, I got to get out to the sunshine. Join me at the table as we talk to Anya Kamenetz. Anya, thank you so much for coming on the Mindful Mama podcast.
Thanks for having me, Hunter.
I'm glad to talk to you because I need some help with this screen time issue. People are asking me about it, and I'm like, oh God, and it's so funny because it seems so much easier when my kids were younger. And I want to talk about screen time at kind of in the different age ranges, but
Yeah.
like when they were below 2, it was like easy, like no screen time, or like when they were 4 and 5 and 6 is like really like not a lot. We're just going to keep it pretty minimal, at least that was my approach. I really wanted them to have a lot of like three-dimensional in the world play. I wanted them to get bored sometimes.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and now, we're all like remote learning. They can't get together with their friends. Minecraft is like a saving grace for my kids because they're like on with their friends, like playing with them, but like they're also on the screen all day with school. And I have a standing desk, but my kid doesn't have a standing desk. She's like sitting down, like they're so sedentary all day. Okay, so these are all my like personal kvetches about this.
Yes.
And I know you have kids too. So
Yes.
maybe you could just help us like kind of describe the problem. And I know there's like not a lot of research about this, but like how does screen time maybe we could look at like how does screen time affect kids at those different ages, like the very young kids, the elementary kids, and then the adolescents.
That's a great question. So, the first thing I want to say to you and just all the parents out there is don't panic. We are in such a hard to control and such an uncertain time right now. And I think it's very easy to fixate on our kids and their technological devices because it seems like maybe this is something we can control or we can intervene on. And it's just so in our faces all the time. But I really do advise parents to take a harm reduction approach always, to focus on, helping the areas that you can control and letting go of what you can't control, and to recognize that our bonds with our children come first. So as long as we're there, we're concerned, we're a positive influence in their lives, it's going to be a better outcome than we don't have full control over our kids at any age, but we do have influence, and we can be a positive influence in our kids' media habits and their relationship to media. So that's just a baseline. In terms of, just take that pressure off for a sec, right? With my book, The Art of Screen Time, when I set out to research it, I was, getting ready to have my second child, and I had all of these questions about what is it doing to their brains, what is it doing to their eyesight, to their emotional development, and the effects that researchers look at are in different kinds of buckets that correspond to the developmental needs of children at different ages. So when you were looking at, for example, a 0 to 3. Interestingly, the most well-documented effects have to do with language development, and not because of the child's involvement with the device, but because of a parent's involvement with the device. So, for example, it's been shown that with background television going on, mother and child conversation can drop 90%. So we're not having those exchanges with our kids back and forth. And there's more recent research that shows basically when a parent is involved in their device and is interrupted by their device constantly, as we often are, it is stopping kind of this skillful cycle that we want to be in with our toddlers when they're having a frustration. We're seeing them head down a path and we kind of intervene. We help them name the feeling, we help them respond to the feeling, and we kind of have to have our radar on in order to do that. And so when we're interrupted because we're paying attention to anything else, it could be bills that we have to pay, it could be the phone that's ringing or the pot on the stove. But when it's the phone and the phone is interrupting us, every couple of minutes, we get less skillful. And our kids, therefore, are not developing their own emotional self-regulation because they really need our help to do that. And as kids get a little bit farther down the developmental path, we are looking to them to develop their attention span and their focus, that they can do reading and they can do math. And we really start to look at what we call dandelions and orchids. So a lot of our kids are the dandelion type. They're very resilient and they can come up almost anywhere and they're going to be really fine and good with various dosages of screens. We have some of our kids that are more sensitive. They are maybe atypically developing. They may be ADHD. They may be on the autism spectrum, or they have, emotional or sensory regulation processing issues, right? Those kids are more prone to a fixation on the device. Very hard to get them off of the device, and hard for them to kind of self-regulate because it's so stimulating, right, to be on the video game or on the TV. And they get explosive. So it's taken away from them and they really have an explosive reaction. And that's when you really start to think about, okay, how do I put the guardrails on and how do I have limitations that they can understand? And maybe you have a chart, maybe you use a kitchen timer, you have a pass system. So you're handing out passes in exchange for something that you do want to see. And just something that's out there that is an agreed upon pattern or metric that you're going to use as a family, just like you do around food. You probably have rules around desserts, you have rules around snacking, what's a mealtime, what's not a mealtime. We roast marshmallows when we're on a camping trip, but we're not going to roast marshmallows every single day. So these are the types of things that you want to start thinking about doing with screen time, developing a healthy model culture habit.
Can I
please go ahead.
jump in here because
Yeah.
So that fixation on screens, it makes a lot of sense, right? Because like they're designed to be so, appealing and just like give us those dopamine hits. And the kids are just like, it's kind of like a drug, right? For kids in the brain, in that it's like giving us these hits. So you're saying we want to, for especially for those ADD sensory processing kids that have difficulties with that, highly sensitive kids, that we really want to just have some clear boundaries around that, and hold them in like, in a way that's, of course, hold their boundaries in a way that's kind and not blameful and not judgmental. But I like what you're saying. You were saying like a chart, a path system, or a timer. And so you're saying like, I think what I want to underline from what you said that that I want to point to is that using something that's like external from just you, mom or dad, an external objective thing that is is like, okay, that limit is there. We have this boundary, and then you're just holding that boundary with compassion. But there's kind of this external thing. It reminds me of like when we were going to school, way back when, long time ago, we used to use a talking countdown timer in my house that would say like 5 minutes to go and 4 minutes to go. So I wasn't the one who had to say that. It was like the machine that said that. So it's similar to that. It's like externalizing that. It's kind of what you pointed to, Anya, which is cool.
Yeah, thanks for underlining that. And you give me the opportunity to say also that, ideally you're not imposing this on a one-sided way, but you're having a family conversation around this where you're getting their buy-in. So you're saying to them, what are the good things about playing video games all day? What are the bad things about playing video games all day? Do you ever notice that you're cranky with me when I tell you that it's time to eat dinner and turn it off? What do you notice about that? Why does it make you so cranky? And let's problem solve together. So a lot of times if you give kids the opportunity, they will collaborate with you in setting the boundaries. Because they're noticing, they know, especially, and honestly, there's more opportunity in the COVID times than ever before for kids to say, gosh, I'm tired of this screen. I've had enough. And I wish that I could go outside. So, figuring out how to be collaborative with your kids, I think is going to go a long way. Having that external, and I should mention, lots of devices have their own controls that are more or less easy to use. So you can also utilize those as well. I'm a paper and pen mom, so that's how I gravitate. But definitely there are parents who are optimizing the parental controls, and that works too.
Oh, I just want to put in here that this is so important. And I kind of thought that, I kind of thought my husband had done it because he's like the tech guy in the house. And like one day, my daughter, who is 9 or 8, I can't remember at the time, but I was doing a coaching call for mindful parenting and she heard me talk about spanking. And then she went in and Googled spanking and she
Uh
yeah, yeah.
oh.
So he was like in a meeting, he looks over and he sees her like looking at porn and he's like, "Oh my
Yeah.
God." And he has to stop his meeting. I mean, apparently it was just like a really brief kind of thing, but I was like,
Hmm.
"Oh my God, what we didn't have these controls." So people, please, like this can happen to the best of us. Like
Yeah.
make sure you know what is blocked and what is not blocked on your
Hmm.
devices that your kids have access to.
I totally agree with that. And I feel your pain. This is also an opportunity to say that we need to have open lines of communication with our
Yes.
kids about if you ever seen anything that you don't understand or that you have questions about, you can always come to me. I'm not going to be mad at you, you
Yeah.
know, and have an opportunity to share your values. And if I can just mention one study that I found to be so interesting, which was that of families that had conversations with their middle school age children about porn, sharing their values around it, what they thought about it, whether that was a religious perspective, a feminist perspective, it really doesn't matter. They had that conversation. It had a really protective effect on those kids. And so they followed them to college and they found that they were less likely to look at porn, less likely to have unhealthy relationships with porn, or to be in relationships with people that used porn. So I think that knowing that, there's no off limits as a family and that you can talk about these things. Again, we have influence and not control. So communication is really our best friend.
Stay tuned for more Mindful Mama podcast right after this break. Growing up, I coveted my friends' awesome cereals, like the chocolate ones and the fruity ones, but I couldn't have them because I ate grape nuts with tons of sugar in them and I added so much sugar. Oh my goodness. Cereal for a lot of kids growing up is like one of the best parts of being a kid, but many of us have to give it up because we realize it's full of sugar and junk and gross stuff that we really shouldn't eat. That's why I'm so excited that Magic Spoon is a sponsor of the Mindful Mama podcast. Magic Spoon is super yummy and tastes like those cereals that you used to love, but it has 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and only 4 net grams of carbs in each serving. It's keto friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, low-carb, and GMO-free, and it only has 140 calories per serving. And we've got super exciting news. Magic Spoon will be releasing 2 amazing flavors this month for a limited time only. We're talking about cookies and cream and maple waffle. And if that isn't the most comforting, indulging combination, then I don't know what is. This is the ultimate treat yourself combo, so make sure you get some while you can for a limited time. Or build your own box. Available flavors to build your own custom bundle are cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, and cinnamon. And if you're listening from Canada, Magic Spoon now ships there as well. My family has been loving Magic Spoon because it's so yummy, yet it's so delicious. My girls have been mixing cocoa with peanut butter, and it tastes exactly like peanut butter cup, which is amazing. Go to magicspoon.com/hunter to grab the new limited edition cookies and cream, maple waffle, or a custom bundle of cereal to try it today. And be sure to use our promo code HUNTER at checkout to save $5 off your first order. This offer is now good anywhere in the US or Canada, but only when you use our code at the checkout. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, get your next delicious bowl of guilt-free cereal at magicspoon.com/hunter and use the code HUNTER to save $5 off. Thank you so much to Magic Spoon for sponsoring this episode. My eighth grader is not going to thank you next time she and I are alone in the car.
Totally. Car trip is the best for this when you're both looking at straight ahead. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. That was a really fruitful tangent, I think, to sort of go on. But we're talking about how it's like affecting kids at kind of those different ages.
Yeah,
When we
right.
get,
Well, I mean, one thing that I should back up and say what I found so convincing across the board in the science is about sleep. And that is really across the board. I mean, it's screwing up our nap times for our toddlers, and it's screwing up definitely our bedtimes for our teens. So if there's one thing to hold the line on and be old school about, it's really devices in the bedroom and having that wind down time before sleep. Because it has these different, lots of different mechanisms for it. But basically, I think that's important to recognize. And our kids need sleep so much. And one of the very small saving graces of this time has been many of our teenagers are able to sleep in and get their allotted hours.
yeah.
And that just is so helpful for so many things.
Yes, it's amazing. Yeah, my almost 14-year-old, she doesn't have to do her morning meeting until 9 in the morning. It's like,
Yeah.
thank goodness. Like that just
Yeah.
makes sense. Like, let's do that. Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of ways that it's messing up our sleep. And so it could, for a toddler, it can mess up sleep before a nap time. If it's like right before, when is that like, what do parents of toddlers want to watch out for there?
Oh, that's a good question. So I just think a kid that's very revved up from watching, a lot of exciting stuff in the afternoon might had a harder time going down for a nap. They also might drop the nap too soon because they're just overstimulated in general throughout the day, and they're not getting restful sleep at night. And with toddlers, it can have a rebound effect where they're more wired the next day and more explosive. So yeah, I mean, I think it's going to depend on your family's routines. If you want to just like hold a stop to it before dinner time and make sure that there's plenty of time after dinner to unwind.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Unfortunately, it's like that's when parents want to unwind, right? Is after dinner. Is like that's when we want to unwind. And like that's a good time for,
Yeah,
seemingly. Okay. All
totally.
right. So it's, we want to really look at like especially kids with ADHD who have sensory processing issues. We want to hold those boundaries. How is screen time affecting kids? So, and what did you see? I guess I would just want to kind of highlight just before we move on the thing for the very young kids. So when my kids were very young, it was like, don't give them screen time under 2. And so
Hmm.
we didn't give them any
Hmm.
screen time under 2. But
Hmm.
I see tons of kids in strollers with like
Hmm.
devices, like watching stuff. So
Hmm.
what does the research say about that now?
So, we honestly don't have the kind of research that we'd like to have. The AAP guidelines were updated with a little more nuance to include the idea that video chatting is probably fine, even with newborns, because they are getting a little bit more of interactive back and forth than they would be if they're watching a recorded video. Um, Also, they updated to say that about 30 minutes of digital device time a day is probably okay, even for like a toddler, on the logic that it's no more than they would be involved with any toy in the toy box. Like there's no toy that can hold a toddler's attention for more than 30 minutes, and that's probably an outside. Um, but I just want to bring in the other two concepts that I have around screen time. It's not just about the amount of time on the device. It's very much about who they're doing it with and what they're doing, right? So, an example of very appropriate digital engagement for a small child that you might have to amuse, let's say on a car ride, would be looking at photos together of family members. An interactive kind of play that I'll do with my 3-year-old, now 4-year-old, would be like, what sound does this animal make? I don't know. Let's watch a video clip. And then we watch the animal together. Then we make the sound, right? So there's back and forth, there's dialogue, and similar to what you would do with a book, right? Or any other piece of media where you point to the picture, you name what's in the picture, you talk about it, maybe you imitate the sound or the music. There's lots and lots of videos that are meant to be interactive, whether they're children's yoga videos or dance videos. Go Noodle, I think, is a great one for kids of lots of different ages. That's like, they were meant to be like indoor physical education, right? So it's like a short video with some learning and some dancing, interactive co-viewing, and then also looking for things that are a little on the slower side. So I really am a fan of audio. not just because I work in audio, but I think that audio makes your brain do a little more work to put the story
Yay,
together.
audio
Yeah,
for the
yeah, we love
podcast
it.
listeners.
You also can move around your room when you're listening to audio. So you don't have to be tethered to the device in the same way. Those are both really good things. So getting our kids listening to stories when we can't be there to read to them, I think is a good thing to think about as well.
While we're there, you have you had a 3-year-old, almost 4-year-old currently. When my kids were in those ages, or maybe 5 and 6, I'm sure there's so many more now, but like we loved Sparkle stories, were like these like amazing, like super like crunchy, nourishing audios. It was like stories about like a brother and sister who are having green beans for breakfast. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, this is a good influence on you. Like, but what do you like that maybe the listener doesn't know about? What are some things that you think are good, just to give them a shout out here?
Oh, sure. I mean, Wow in the World is a big thing in our house. The science podcast, Story Seeds, we've listened to a few times. And then honestly, like Roald Dahl audiobooks tend to be a huge hit. And then there's a series, we belong to Epic, which is a digital book subscription service. And one of the cool things about that is when my daughter was getting her like reading, it's like training wheels for reading. So she can get the same book and she can get audio and print versions at the same time and read them and listen to them. So I think that really helped her kind of carry her along. Yeah.
Cool. Good.
Series.
All right. Yeah. So we don't always have to, we can hold those boundaries around the screens. We can give them some audio content instead, and like how, help out that. Okay. So, what are the effects of screen time that we're seeing on maybe elementary or older kids, middle school and high school?
Sure. So, I think obviously the needs of our kids as they get older translate out more into their peer interactions and their development as social beings, right? So we become more concerned with their digital interactions, with cyberbullying, with negative types of interactions, negative self-comparisons, negative self-talk. Are they using social media kind of in a way that makes them feel bad about themselves? Or with video games, is it a place where there's a lot of kind of hazing type of conversation, very kind of angry conversation that can go on between boys sometimes, similar to sports. I mean, trash talking is a thing in games, just like it is in sports. And so talking with our kids about how do you like to socialize online, and what are the ways that feel good, and what are the ways that feel not so good, and what do you do when someone says something you don't like, or they text something to you that you don't like? Do you have a language for talking about that or resolving conflicts? And just helping our kids become more skillful on that, I think is pretty key. And then, on the margins, besides the sort of sensitive kids that we talked about, certainly we're hearing way too much about anxiety and depression amongst the tweens and the teenagers right now. And I think it's fair to say that social media can be a vehicle for those feelings. It can be a place where you go and you can feel better about yourself or worse about yourself. But certainly the diving into kind of the one-way consumption is hardly ever going to organically make you feel better. So, I mean, we certainly all have rituals of self-care where we say like, oh, there's a comedy movie or there's a song that I listen to that makes me feel better. And we can share those with our kids as well and help them, understand how media consumption can be contributing to wellness. We can talk to them about reaching out to friends and extending support to friends as well. But I think we do want to watch for like a dynamic where a kid feels unmotivated to do anything other than be on their device, and then being on their device brings them even lower.
Okay. Yeah. And okay. So when we want to watch for that, and that kind of that passive thing, that passive consumption, watch for that bringing them lower. And then for those interactions, we just want to be coaching and teaching them, guiding them through those interactions and kind of offering some support. I guess we're not necessarily talking about like, what I'm not hearing you say, which I think is interesting to kind of point out too, is that I'm not hearing you say like spyware, like figure out all the, like look at all their texts or whatever, that kind of thing. Is there any what are experts saying about that kind of thing?
I think this is a topic that can divide some experts. I think that I just really err on the side of establishing trust with your kids And it can be a trust but verify. Certainly if you're upfront about it, and I especially would say the younger the kids are, the more appropriate it might be to have a sort of eavesdropping component. Just like you might not say to your 11-year-old, oh, you should conduct all of your social business in the schoolyard with no supervision from any adult whatsoever. Like you probably wouldn't say that, right?
Yeah.
You probably would say, like, I would love to have your friends over in the rec room and I'll come in and out with snacks and I'll overhear what you're talking about, but I won't be inserting myself, right?
Yeah.
Unless I
Yeah.
hear
Yeah.
something that's a big red flag.
Mhm.
Or I'm driving you to gymnastics and I'm listening to the back seat, but I'm not like busting in. So those kinds of the slow boundaries and the slow backing away and the scaffolding is really, really important to do. And so I think if you give an 11-year-old a phone, you can give it to them with the understanding that it might get collected by mom at some point. I don't think that's unfair at all. But a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old, 16-year-old might be a very different story. And so you really need to have that buy-in.
Stay tuned for more Mindful Mama podcast right after this break. Before you leave the house, you do the checklist, right? For your phone, keys, and wallet. And it's time to add one more little thing before you walk out the door. Birdie is the newest essential addition to your routine. Now, listen, I'm a super optimistic person, but I'm not going to be messing around. And I am so thrilled to be having my Birdie personal safety alarm right in my purse anytime I go out, ready to go. It is designed to be easy to carry and super simple to use. And the way it works is so cool. When you activate your Birdie with a quick pull, the alarm will emit a loud 130 decibel siren with flashing strobe light to help deter an attack. And unlike pepper spray or other deterrents, Birdie is no danger to you. You can feel confident to use it without worry. Birdie goes wherever you do. The alarm comes in multiple colors and has a brass keychain so you can attach it to your keys or your bag like I did. Over 300,000 Birdie alarms have been sold, and they have thousands of 5-star reviews. Join the flock today for a safer tomorrow. Right now, She's Birdie is offering our listeners 15% off your first purchase when you go to shesbirdie.com/hunter. Go to She's Birdie, spelled SHESBIRDIE.com/hunter for 15% off your first purchase. And you can find that URL on the show notes. If you look at where you're listening to this podcast right now on your device, you'll see a place where there's notes for the show. You can scroll on down and find that URL, shesbirdie.com/hunter. That's shesbirdie.com/hunter. Go ahead and get it. You will have some peace of mind, and it's a no-brainer.
Spyware it's a tough one, and even on a school-wide basis. So many schools that have the school-issued devices are buying software that triggers and red flags on, talk of self-harm or talk of suicide or violence. And those systems are not perfect. But what social and emotional development experts, psychiatrists, psychologists tell me is that a system like that can provide an early warning, but you have to have trusted adults that have relationships with kids, because you can say, hey, I found this on your computer. And what is that kid's motivation to tell the truth about what's happening at that point?
Yeah.
Are they literally reaching out for help, cry for help? Okay, great. I'm glad that we found you and we can have this conversation. Or is it a school where adults are not trusted by the teens? And then no matter how many red flags you get, you're not going to be able to successfully prevent something. So that relationship comes first, last, and always. And whatever you need to do to preserve the open communication with your kids, you should prioritize that.
I love what you're saying. It really coincides with everything we talk about and teach in mindful parenting. And I think that's amazing. And I really appreciate the analogy that you gave about what would you do if it was in real life? What if they were it was 11-year-olds hanging out in real life, yeah, there might be times where they're off on their own, but there might be times where you're hanging out together and you're kind of checking in and whatnot. So that really helps me anyway, kind of wrap my head around it and think about think about it in a healthy way.
Well, the other thing, just to add on to that I want to mention, that can go overlooked at this point in the game is the eyes on the street. So who are the other trusted adults outside the family, that might follow your kid on Instagram if they have an Instagram account? Is it the counselor or the auntie, the cousin, your family friend? That might be, they're not going to necessarily report every single thing back to mom, but there might be some things that they do. And so that's how we collectively keep our kids safe, is with that web of trusted adults. And I even got a great piece of advice from a sex education worker that I interviewed several years ago, who said she actually had a nominating process, a very formal process, where every year she would ask her children, who is the grown-up for this year that if you need to talk to someone about something, you can go to, something that you're worried, you're embarrassed to come to me, or you're worried I'm going to be disappointed in you. Who is that person? And then together we're going to go tell that person that they're your person for this year.
That's an interesting way to do it. Yeah. And because I've thought about that. And then as my kids have gotten older, I thought, well, will then my child go to this friend of ours, even though that's something I'd hope. I like the idea of kind of formalizing that process. That's really cool. Okay. So, all right. There's a lot to take in here. We may be listening back, me and you, dear listener. But let's think. So, in this time in the pandemic, we're struggling to kind of balance it. Obviously, is there any kind of rule of thumb for how much is okay? Like, is there, and what would your response, I guess, to that question be? Because I get that question, so I'm curious about what your response is.
I think that it's kind of like healthy eating. You want to think about the week more than the day.
Okay.
And the balance that comes across several meals and not just every single meal. So for me, guarding that sleep time is important. Having an hour of wind down time before bed, making sure they get outside every single day, and that you have at least one screen-free meal, hopefully with as many family members that can attend that meal. Those are the priorities. Obviously, they need to get schoolwork done, and whatever that it means. And then, so does that mean that the other hours in the day are free for all? I mean, you can add on to that. And this is something that's been in a negotiation with my 9-year-old who's on remote school and finishes her work very quickly. I would say that there's, you can certainly try to say that you're going to ask them to add on another screen-free activity other than, that's in their free time, their ample free time, on top of that. So then once you do all those things, you've kind of chunked it down to, like, I don't know, 3 hours a day, 2 hours a day, but it can't be hard and fast, and it's going to change day by day because you can't control all of it. Someday you're going to have the day where you're chock full of meetings, or, both kids are out of childcare because of the pandemic, and like things are going to go off the rails. And then just like with eating, you say like, okay, we're going to take a few days to kind of bring it back into balance, and maybe we'll get a day off and we'll spend the day outside away from screens and kind of balance it out that way.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, in my family, we've done, for our sakes as adults, as much as our kids' sakes, we've done screen-free Sunday for years and years now.
Nice.
And that's really helpful for me. Would you recommend that families create like a kind of a chunk of time where that's like a little bit of a detox time like that?
If it sounds appealing to you, yes. I'm very wary of loading something else on parents'
We don't want to should them.
Yeah, but if it sounds like appealing, and also if you really feel stuck, like if you feel like these are patterns that I can't get out of and I don't know how, going out of range can be a great way to do it if you have the resources to do it. Yeah. But
Okay.
again, like it should be something where you really feel like, and I mean, there's a softer approach to it, which is like, oh, hey, like I found these like secondhand roller skates. Why don't we go spend the day at the roller skate park? And then like, it's not like you're pitching it as a screen-free day, but you're pitching it as a fun family activity that happens to take us away from our screens. Water park, that was something that was commonly mentioned in the before times, because you're in the pool. There's no phones in the pool.
Yeah, you can't have a phone in the pool. That's for sure. Okay. All right. So yeah. And this can be hard for parents too. I mean, like, it's winter,
Yeah.
like it's COVID, like, there's not that much. We went for a walk 6 feet away with my friend recently. And it's like, I'm like, oh, here we go. We're looking at another weekend where like I'm like,
Yeah.
we're having movie night on Friday and then Bill and I are watching a show on Saturday. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
there's like just not that much to do.
Yeah.
Other than go for walks, and it's cold and
Yeah.
windy and like miserable out. It's like
Yeah.
this is definitely the worst part of a pandemic, I have to say.
Yeah, these are the doldrums. Absolutely. I mean, uh, so the one thing that we haven't, I mean, I talked about this a tiny bit, but like I really build in the notion of co-viewing as well as part of a healthy media approach, that there needs to be some of the time that you're spending that you're actually sharing with your kids. And so it's one thing to have everybody on 4 different devices. And it's a very different thing to be watching, let's say, Grease with your 9-year-old and like trying to explain what those outfits are about and like laughing and throwing popcorn. Like it really is a different kind of experience. And so letting people take turns choosing what show to watch and actually picking a show to watch together once in a while, I think can be, it's not a break, but it's a change up.
Yeah, and it's something that brings you together. We do that. Every Friday night is movie night, and now during COVID, we are so regular on that. It used to be like there would be things that would interrupt all these different Fridays.
Right,
And
totally.
now we're like boom, boom, boom every Friday. And kind of every Tuesday or Wednesday night we watch like a show together. And that's the hardest one, is to like pick a show to watch together.
Oh, I know. What have you watched?
Well, our kids are a little older, so we have watched, I don't know. For a while, we were into the Great British Baking Show. We've watched a couple episodes of Cobra Kai, but I'm not sure everybody's into it.
Yep.
We really liked The World's Most Extraordinary Homes, and I wish they would make more of those. That was really fun.
Great British Baking Show is totally a family classic. Me and my 9-year-old watched all of The Good Place, and I really recommend it.
Oh yeah. See, my problem is I watched like every episode except the latest one on my own, so I'm like a little like hesitant to
I
watch the whole
rewatched
thing
it
again.
just with her. I rewatched it with her.
That's a good idea. I think maybe I'll just suggest that we rewatch that one together, because like I love like the ideas behind it, like what happens in the afterlife, and those questions are like fascinating for me. But if you could watch it with a 9-year-old, then I could watch it with my 11 and 14-year-old. And
I mean,
and for co-viewing, here's another mistake that I made, just FYI, people. Like, definitely always check Common Sense Media.
Yes, very good point.
On what's going on with the movies. So when my oldest daughter was like 11, meaning my youngest daughter was like 8, my older daughter had read the book Miss Peregrine's Peculiar Children.
Oh.
So I can't keep up with her. I mean, she's said they're both such voracious readers. Like I can't like read all the books I read, but I saw the book on the coffee table. I saw the cover and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then the movie came out and I was like, oh, it's for some reason in my head, it like clicked in that it was like, it had the word children in the cover, and my like 11, almost 12-year-old had read it. So I was like, oh, let's go watch this together. And I didn't check. And people, it's like a horror movie for kids. Like it's really scary. It's so scary. I was petrified. I was holding my 8-year-old on my lap. We were both like, we're so scared. So just check. Check the movie.
Totally. Definitely always check.
My dad took me to RoboCop at some point when I was a kid.
Oh no.
And I guess he says the story and I like tugged on his arm and I was like, it's like me and like all these like adult men, you know? And I was like, I don't think I'm supposed to be here. And to his credit, he took me out. He left the movie and took me out. But I remember those first scenes were like pretty intense. Don't take your kids to see RoboCop. Stay tuned for more Mindful Mama podcast right after this break. I am obsessed with only using the safest products for my kids' skin, especially when they're babies. It makes such a big difference. You know, their skin is absorbing everything. That is why I'm so thrilled that Pipette is a sponsor of the podcast. Pipette is a clean baby and mom care brand with a mission to give every family the best start. All of Pipette's products are made with this key ingredient, squalane, When babies are born, their skin is coated with a creamy substance called the vernix, which you probably know, which provides this natural protection for newborns in the first few hours after birth. The vernix is rich with the ultra hydrating molecule squalane and has nourishing waterproofing effect on baby's skin. That squalene is your baby's built in moisturizer and is key to keeping skin safe. But after that protective vernix absorbs, your baby's skin needs a little extra love and care. And that's where squalene comes in. And that's where it can come in also with your skin or even your older child's skin. I mean, really, we all want what's best for our children, and that includes these safe products. Pipette is a customer favorite for its ultra gentle baby lotions, oils, and washes. And right now you can score 30% off its entire collection of personal care items. They set the standard for clean and best performing products. While the FDA bans only 12 potentially harmful ingredients in skincare products, Pipette bans more than 2,000, ensuring that all its products are safe and effective and only use non-toxic ingredients. Pipette's products are also EWG verified, vegan, hypoallergenic, sustainable, pediatrician, and dermatologist approved. So go ahead and visit pipettebaby.com and get 30% off with the coupon code HUNTER. That's Pipette, Pipettete, baby.com and get 30% off with the coupon code HUNTER. And you can just, on your device where you're listening to this, you'll see a place where it has show notes. And if you scroll down, you'll see a link for pipettebaby.com right there. So go ahead and get these ultra safe, non-toxic, super effective products. I am loving them. Okay, so we're kind of shifting into some good ways we can kind of share screens. Are there any apps or games or things that you think are like kind of positive and kind of push it onto that positive side that you would recommend?
Um, I I have to confess that I'm not a huge gamer. I know that what we've seen a lot of growth in, and what I see in my house, is the Roblox, the Minecraft, and now Among Us. And I think that all of those have pretty low barriers to entry that make it it's really nice if you're able to try to engage alongside your kid and at least understand the basics of the games and what's fun about them, as well as the mechanics of like who they're talking to and that type of thing. Because with my daughter, like, she's able to get on with her actual friends and play together, and I think that's really, it's a lot more. I feel a lot better about that because she's talking with people that she knows, and sometimes she'll Zoom at the same time that she's playing. Um, so in general, I would just say, like, as a bias for me, that the more kind of appified and casual the game is, the less rewarding it's going to be. The more it has these, like, when it has like a million little ding, ding, ding and rewards and in-app upgrades, and it's sort of like it's designed to be played on your phone endlessly, that's not so great. It's like more sticky and it's less complicated. Where ironically, like the system-based games, the PC games, the games that you pay for, they're not necessarily constructed that way. They're not constantly upselling you, and they're meant to sort of have a longer narrative, and you're investing a little more time in them. So, depending on what your kid is excited about doing, you can kind of figure out how to turn it into something that you feel a little bit better about.
Yeah. Yeah. Minecraft is interesting because my kids started playing when they were young, and now my daughter's like 14 and she's so into it. Like the teenagers are
Amazing.
super into it. It's
Yeah.
incredibly creative what they're doing. She's
Yeah.
like, I mean, it's really pretty interesting. And I'm pretty sure she has like some secret crushes on some Minecraft YouTubers as well. So
Yeah, totally.
she's never gonna listen
Totally.
to this. Sorry, Maggie. um,
Yeah.
okay, so all right, so like let's not freak out, but let's like be discerning. Let's look at what's there, um, and let's be modeling healthy behavior. Let's be trying to like engage, in things that are not screen time together, and maybe doing some screen time together. Is if for the parent who's listening, who's worried that their child is like definitely where their child has had way too much screen time. Is there a way
Mhm.
to effectively like kind of wean your child off of that? What can they do?
Yeah, this is a great question. So, in my presentations, I give parents something called the problematic media use measure, which is a
Mm.
basically questionnaire that started to be validated that is based on behavioral addiction, such as gambling addiction. And it really focuses not on the amount of time, but on the child's relationship to the media. So, is it the one thing that they seem to care about, the thing that they think about when they get up in the morning? Do they sneak it? Do they sneak around late at night, early in the morning? Do they break your VPN? Any kind of controls you try to put on it in order to get more. Is it interrupting basically their relationships with family, with friends, and certainly with school? So, if you see those kinds of red flags, warning signs, I do think that it's kind of necessary to impose a little bit, or a lot more structure and interruption in that kind of reward cycle. And, whether that be really reducing the amount of time and giving, someone where there's, even, going back to what might be more appropriate for a younger child in terms of like, you're going to earn this much time by doing these other things that you need to do. Not taking it away forever, like there's no rewards on the horizon, but really saying like, this is something we need to really control and measure. And it's very, very hard because if you think about, a substance addiction where you can cold turkey it out of your life forever, right?
Mhm.
Versus something like food where you actually have to just transform your relationship to it and you can't stop eating food. That's a lot harder. And I would argue that technology is a lot more like food because it's going to be in their lives in some form, certainly for
Mhm.
school. And so they
Mhm.
need to be able to have a structured, maybe a lot of structure, a lot of guardrails, but make sure that there's rewards as well as punishments involved in that. As you say, like, okay, if I see you playing the piano or if I see you reading a book or doing something that's, a similar kind of game, but it's a board game version of it, then you can maybe earn a little bit more video game time back, and kind of going about it that way. But it's going to
Okay.
take time and patience.
And when for a parent who's like maybe thinking that they may need to do some of this, how
Mhm.
are there any skillful ways to kind of go about starting this conversation and justifying or explaining that to their children? Because there's going to be a lot of pushback. Like my brother doesn't have these limits on,
Yeah,
on this, but why
yeah,
do I have to have it? That kind of thing.
yeah. So you and I, we've been having a lot of fights about your video game use, and you disrespected my boundaries by waking up in the middle of the night and taking the system into your room. And I really don't want to have conflicts about this with you. I think you're such a great kid, and there's so many things that you do really, really well. So we need to problem solve together about how we're going to have a better um, discussion about this and rules around this going forward because this can't go on like this. And I know that I've talked to your teacher and she really feels like you could be doing better in your math. And I know you don't feel great about your math grades right now. Um, so let's problem solve. What are the ways that we could do this? And they might surprise you with what they come up with. It's very rare that we honestly, many families ask our kids what they want and what they think about. And I mean, I'll be totally real with you. Like I had this conversation with my daughter not too long ago. I said, you're getting good grades, but you're racing through your school and just to get back on the video games. And do I need to sign you up for some activities, or an extra class to make sure you're using your time wisely? Or can I trust you to make decisions about how you use your time?
Mhm.
And that really was the conversation. And we've seen that she's, now choosing to spend more of her time practicing piano and reading books. And I mean, my kid is not like, kids are very different and they're different in the amount of like energy and time that they have to be oppositional versus working with you. But I do, that is the way that I try to approach it with my own daughter very, very recently.
It's interesting as you describe that behavior. My daughter has a I it's like almost like an addiction obsession with listening to audio, like
Huh.
literally listening to Harry Potter
Yep.
or this podcast that she likes all the time. In fact, like yesterday, like she hadn't eaten breakfast, so I knew she was hungry. I'd come in for lunch and I was like, and then she chose because we don't want her to listen to her headphones listen to Harry Potter while she's like in the room with us,
Yeah.
like hanging out. Like
Fair.
that's not
Yeah.
rude. So she
Yeah.
chooses to wait until we have all made our lunch and sat down and eating. So then she will go in and
Mhm.
listen to her headphones and make her lunch, which I'm
Mhm.
like a little worried about this behavior, but I'm like, I don't know. Like it's so, I don't know. I'm a little worried that
Mhm.
has difficulty being in reality without mediation.
Um, I totally feel you, and I feel for both sides of the story there, because we are all living on top of each other right now, and we don't have the mental space that we might have been used to when we had our busy lives and our routines. And I would love to hear from your daughter, like if she feels like this is how she can have mental space and just be in a world
Mm.
of her own and not have to deal with the back and forth or the concerns or the compliments or anything that's coming from her family versus be at Hogwarts mentally.
I
you
appreciate
know,
that perspective, Anya.
but
Yeah.
the concern, I mean, of course, your concern is so valid too, and the compassion in there, just to say like, that you like having her around and you like having her conversations, and you'd love for there to
Yes.
be a small amount of time that you can connect as a family. And what does that look like for you guys? That's beneficial for everyone.
So funny for you listeners who have like younger kids who won't stop talking to you. Just
Yeah.
just listen to my story and like appreciate their like incessant chatter.
Yeah, totally. Totally. The little girl pretending to be a kitten on the stairs, just like refusing to walk up the stairs. That was my reality this morning.
Oh, that's so awesome. All right, well, good.
Yeah.
I think we have covered so many things. I've definitely want to re-listen, thinking about like we're going to be prioritizing sleep, thinking about being collaborative, about creating those boundaries, maybe turning off that TV in the background,
Yes.
and thinking about our own behavior, like so we're not getting interrupted. When we can really be present. Um, Anya, is there anything that we didn't cover that you think that's important for parents to know when we are worried about screen time and thinking about screen time and how to get through this weird pandemic time and back into normal times?
Um, I think we did a great job. I mean, I love the way that you've been like summarizing the takeaways at each point. You know, I think that, I mean, one aspect that I'm curious about has to do with media literacy and how our young people are making sense of the world around them through
Mm,
what they may or may not be hearing on the news, and just the plague of misinformation and disinformation. So I think, we just did a piece at NPR about civics learning, and part of civics has to do with, talking about what you hear in the news. Definitely not playing the news all day and all night. We don't want to do that, but helping our kids make sense of what they may hear or just get filtered in. It might even be in a YouTube video, or it might be, in Minecraft, where they're getting references to things going on in the world, and it's really incumbent upon us to talk to them about that, and help them understand what trusted news sources are and how to make sense of what they hear in the world.
yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, we want to think about, well, what is the source of this, and why
Yeah.
do you think that person is saying this, and invite them to question. I think it's funny because
Yeah.
like it's interesting because like with all the crazy things that have happened, the people who are being being really pulled into like radical positions, in some
Yeah.
ways that is because they're questioning, right?
Yes.
Right? Like in some ways that is because they're questioning, but it's like, yeah, how I don't know, there's like a lot up in the air in some ways that there.
Yeah, I mean, skepticism doesn't mean that you can't be convinced of crazy things. Like it really is important that our kids understand scientific methods and research. And I mean, part of that is the job of the schools, but we do have, just we want to create a family culture where we say like, we sort of understand what we can and can't trust, and sort of make decisions based on those heuristics as well. And instead of just like questioning everything, but saying like, okay, like this is why politicians say the certain things that they do. This is why business people say the things that they do, and everybody's coming from a point of view. And the dinner table really is like uh, the little laboratory of democracy, where we get people who not only speak up for what they believe in, but also learn to consider what other people think.
Yeah, we've had some interesting conversations with my daughter about trans rights and whether J.K. Rowling is
Yeah,
anti-trans and just
big one.
it's been very very interesting
Yeah,
to look at you know uh, she's really passionate and but to then offer her some more nuance to the different sides of the arguments. So it's really
totally.
interesting. All right, so yeah, let's think about what our kids may or may not be hearing. Yeah, I think younger kids hear a lot more than we think they hear. You know what I
They
mean?
do.
And I my in my someone close to me has kids who are mixed race kids and has been very protective of not protecting their innocence has been their
Mm,
position. And I'm a
mm,
little worried about that because I know that kids hear more than they think they, you know what I mean? And
yeah.
is that the message that we can't talk about these things? And I don't know. That's a whole other podcast, I
That's
guess,
a whole
Anya.
other podcast, and I hope you do it. I'm a big fan of race literacy and race consciousness, and making sure that our kids know that these topics are not off limits and that they understand their position in the world as white children. I think it's so incumbent upon us to do that and to do that work.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been such a pleasure. I know you've opened the door to so many ideas up here at the end, but I think what you have offered us in a lot of ways is reassuring, like we're going to get through this. We're going to go back to a more balanced life at some point
Yeah,
where this won't be such an issue. Like it's coming. That sort of more balanced life is coming, and we can
yes,
navigate these waters. But you're kind of inviting us into a place of like, let's talk, let's collaborate, let's trust, let's listen, let's just like kind of be alert and don't fall victim to our own anxiety and our own fear in this kind of what I'm
that's so
getting
true,
this.
Hunter. And just helping ourselves feel more competent to address this. I think there's a
Yes.
basic, and I get into this in the Art Screen Night, just like Grandma didn't have any iPad rules, and so we don't have any passed down wisdom on this, and we're really making it up, and that's why we feel so at sea, I think.
Mm,
But we can develop the collective wisdom, and I think the reason that's why there's positive media like this, right, for parents to share and feel like they're part of a community that's collectively developing best practices on this.
yeah, hell yeah. Thank you so much, Anya. Where can
Yeah, my
people
pleasure.
find out more about you and
Um,
um,
I'm on anyakamenetz.net, ANYAKAMENETZ. I have a newsletter, which is a tiny letter that you can sign up for, which I have my articles and my appearances and my books. I'm on Twitter, Anya1Anya. So yeah, come find me.
all right, all those places. And we will have links to Anya's things at mindfulmamamentor.com in the show notes. Thanks again, Anya. I really appreciate the work that you've done, and I really appreciate your time sharing it with us. We've needed someone to talk, we've needed to have you come and talk to us about this because those worries have been up in the air. So it's really
Yeah,
a great thing. So thank you.
my pleasure. Truly, thank you so much for your work that you do.
I love what Anya said about this whole like, including our kids in and really just getting that perspective. We always need that perspective, don't we, about what's really happening and how to address it. So I hope this episode has helped you. If so, please share it with some friends. If you have other people who are struggling with screen time, text it to your group of mom friends, share it in your, local area Facebook group so that others can be part of this conversation and get the help that they need too. It makes a huge difference. All right. Well, I appreciate your time. I really thank you for connecting with me today. Oh, I forgot the other thing I wanted to tell you. Mindful Mama Mentor has an awesome new YouTube channel now. So you can see video clips of this episode as well as other episodes we've done on our YouTube channel. And you can just go to YouTube and search Mindful Mama Mentor and you'll find the YouTube channel. Go ahead and subscribe. So we're looking to get our subscription numbers up to get those videos out. So go ahead and subscribe. You'll see me teaching on a bunch of topics like little 5-minute sessions as well as clips from this podcast. podcast episode. So if you want to see what it looks like, go ahead and check it out. Mindful Mama Mentor on YouTube. All right. Well, thanks again, my friend. I'm so happy to connect with you. I'm wishing you pockets of peace and joy and a healthy week. Namaste.
I'd say definitely do it. It's really helpful. It will change your relationship with your kids for the better. It will help you communicate better. And just, I'd say communicate better as a person, as a wife, as a spouse. It's been really a positive influence in our lives. So definitely do it.
I'd say definitely do it. It's so worth it. The money really is inconsequential when you get so much benefit from being a better parent to your children and feeling like you're connecting more with them and not feeling like you're yelling all the time or you're like, why isn't things working? I would say definitely do it. It's so worth it. It'll change you.
No matter what age someone's child is, it's a great opportunity for personal growth and it's a great investment in someone's family. I'm very thankful I have this.
You can continue in your old habits that aren't working, or you can learn some new tools and gain some perspective to shift everything in your parenting.
Are you frustrated by parenting? Do you listen to the experts and try all the tips and strategies, but you're just not seeing the results that you want? Or are you lost as to where to start? Does it all seem so overwhelming with too much to learn? Are you yearning for a community of people who get it, who also don't want to threaten and punish to create cooperation? Hi, I'm Hunter Clark-Fields, and if you answered yes to any of these questions, I want you to seriously consider the Mindful Parenting membership. You will be joining hundreds of members who have discovered the path of mindful parenting and now have confidence and clarity in their parenting. This isn't just another parenting class. This is an opportunity to really discover your unique, lasting relationship, not only with your children, but with yourself. It will translate into lasting, connected relationships, not only with your children, but your partner too. Let me change your life. Go to mindfulparentingcourse.com to add your name to the waitlist, so you will be the first to be notified when I open the membership for enrollment. I look forward to seeing you on the inside. mindfulparentingcourse.com.